Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our panel on organizing key constituencies. My name is Grace Hall, and I'm the Young Americans Network Coordinator here at American Promise. Today, I'm joined by a fantastic group of very accomplished women who are leading organizations that mobilize key constituencies. So, to start off, a little round of applause wouldn't hurt. Thank you. So, to start off, I'll ask you guys to introduce yourselves, tell us about the mission of your organization, and then share the most important lesson that you've learned about organizing your constituency. So we can start with you, Aaliyah.
Fabulous. It's such a treat to be here. Grace, thank you. Thank you to the American Promise team, and I always love spending time with Emma and Layla. My name is Aaliyah Bhatia. I'm the executive director at an organization called Vote ER. And at Vote ER, we meet people where they are by helping them vote and prepare to vote in healthcare settings, supporting healthcare professionals to make sure patients are equipped to vote in upcoming elections, to vote if, for example, they're hospitalized right before an election. And to give you a sense of what this looks like, think about a pediatrician in America today. Pediatricians are treating young folks, and then right at the point where that person hits 18, they become an adult. They not only have things changing about their body, they have things changing about their power. And so our pediatricians remind these patients who just turned 18, okay, I'm checking in on whether you're wearing your seatbelt, I'm checking in on whether you've got safe habits at home. Oh, by the way, you have a new power. You're able to vote now. Have you registered for the upcoming election? They might talk to parents of young folks and say, hey, if you want to advocate for your young person, we want to make sure that you show up and vote your voice. Now today, this is backed by the research of folks like the American Medical Association, Health and Human Services, who have all named that voting is a critical part of what keeps us healthy at the state, national, and local level in terms of the link between voting and health. How many folks in this room have ever seen a MyChart notification pop into your inbox or have MyChart on your phone? So Vote ER recently partnered with a group called EPIC, which runs MyChart, so that healthcare-based voter registration can go straight into the intake process when you're filling out your forms to go into the office or when your health professional is doing your check-in. You asked what was the most important thing that we have learned. We know in our work that we have a 17% higher turnout rate for young voters who are asked by their health professional about voting. And so the thing that we have learned that is so important, that I think that so many of you in this room know, is that trusted messengers make such a big difference in this work. They can unlock folks because they have the trust and the relationship with them that others may not.
Hi, Emma Adams. I'm the co-executive director of Mormon Women for Ethical Government. We're also known as MWAG as our acronym. It's a big mouthful to say. We have a two-part mission, and one aspect of that is to do exactly what it says in our title, which is to advocate for ethical government. That's pretty clear. And then the other one is to empower women. We have about 7,000 women who are members, plus a larger tens of thousands who are followers across the United States in 49 states. And on the empower side, we focus on a couple different areas, the first being peace. We try to have them do everything they do in a way that builds peace rather than detracts from it, and builds civility and does it in a way that really is persuasive rather than coercive. We focus on truth, media literacy, learning how to recognize misinformation, how to perhaps love and care and influence those who are deep in misinformation, and how to maintain and grow those relationships, and to be just really good news consumers and good evaluators of potential policies. We work a lot on identity. We have worked to create a political identity, what we call a principled citizen or a principled voter. And that is one who their primary identity is not necessarily to a party, while we certainly invite them to maintain their party membership, but to not be beholden to that as the sole source of information and identity. And then the last one is civic skills. So all those sorts of skills I'm sure you guys have talked about today, about all the good things that we need to be good principled voters. On our C4 side, we have multiple areas of advocacy. The kind of the foundational one is protecting democracy. That underlies everything that we do. We ask through the lens of, is this going to increase the democratic process? Is it going to make it better? Is this going to increase democracy, protect and preserve it, or is it going to hurt it? We also work on immigration. We work on children and families and a few other things as well. So that's a big mission. It's a lot. We've got a lot of women doing it. I think one of the things that we have learned, and we've known from the beginning, but it's really come into focus over the years, is that the most important thing that we can do as leaders with this constituency is to provide advocacy opportunities that are nourishing to them, that accept and not just accept and celebrate the fact that these are women who are engaged in their community on multiple levels. We are not asking them to come to us and to give up all those other things and turn into superwomen or a super advocate or to let go of everything else. We actually would argue that the good things they do, whether it be running the PTO or welcoming refugees or being the kind of the person who organizes the community neighborhood parties, we think that makes them good at what they do and it makes them good pro-democracy advocates. And the last thing we want to do is to give them a whole bunch more jobs for them to feel guilty about not doing. So we welcome them to engage at whatever kind of space they want to, rather than moving them up a ladder of engagement. We have a web to catch them whenever they come in, and when they need to exit out, we're there with them too. And I think what that does is it allows us to see them as whole people, allows them to develop as whole people, and I think it actually makes them more effective advocates.
That's great. Well, hello. There's like a whole chunk of people I can't see right here, but I believe that you're here and you're hanging on every word I'm about to say. Thank you for having me here. My name is Layla Zayden, and I'm the president and CEO of a nonprofit called Future Caucus. And our mission is to activate the next generation of elected leaders to bridge the partisan divide and transform American politics. So likewise, very small mission, very tiny, easy achievable thing. And what that looks like in practice is we really help millennial and Gen Z lawmakers in Congress and in state legislatures build relationships across party lines and work on policy solutions together, whatever policy solutions they want to work on, so that political polarization is not the thing that's stopping us from getting things done. And we've been around for 10 years. In that time, we've launched a Future Caucus chapter in Congress and in 34 states, and we've had about 1,800 legislators be a part of our work. So just an incredible movement of people who, I think there was a joke earlier about like the gene pool is not what it used to be. They're repopulating the gene pool with good leaders who are interested in doing the right thing. That's right. And our job is really to equip them with the tools that they need to be successful. So we do leadership development. We help connect them to smart people who can help them with their policies, so subject matter experts and bipartisan forums. And then we do a lot of communications as well to help make sure that their leadership is being recognized and heard in their districts, right? If a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, does it make a sound? We're here to make sure that people are around to hear the tree. And the question you asked about what have I learned in the time organizing this constituency, for me it's that, and everyone in this room probably knows this, so much of politics is organized in a very zero-sum framework, right? Very deficit mindset about what we don't have or what we want to take back or what we want to break down or what we want to push back against. And what we've found is the kind of person who at a young age goes through the effort to run for office because they believe in something bigger than themselves, because they want to serve a bigger community, a bigger sense of we. Tapping into not a deficit mindset, but an abundance mindset, an asset framework about not what's missing or what's hard, but what do I bring that can be additive, that can help transform what's already here into something better. That is incredibly energizing. And it's what's been really effective in helping us get both Republicans, Democrats, and independents in some states, so thanks to everyone who's been involved in making that easier, getting them to the same table to sit down, build authentic relationships with one another just as humans first, and then open up opportunities to tap into the asset that they bring, their fresh perspectives, to pass policy that our communities are desperately in need of.
Thank you. Thank you all for getting us started. It is so wonderful to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So I'm going to direct the first question to Emma. How has your organization changed its organizing strategies in response to recent challenges or shifts in the political landscape?
So because we have a very purple constituency, we actually have fairly equal number of Democrats and Republicans and then a really healthy dose of independents in there. So for that reason, we are able to kind of withstand changes in power, and kind of maybe sometimes deploy people a little bit differently. So if we have more of a certain party or ideology, we might use them in different places, but we do try to, whenever we meet with legislators, whenever we advocate, we do work really hard to try to always have multiple perspectives there. And I think we've become known for always being able to do that. The thing that we do try to do, as polarization deepens amongst members of Congress, as we feel as though politics becomes more adversarial, one of the things that we try to do is to actually lean even deeper into peacemaking and civility. So where the instincts might be to fight back, to push back, to coerce, to try to win, that is actually the time when we kind of have to, I think, soften ourselves in some ways and look deeper for shared humanity. And that's really hard to do. I actually was just on the Hill this morning, and I was in a meeting with a staffer, and some of the things she said, I just strongly don't only disagree with, I didn't think they were actually correct. And so through lots of practice in this, rather than kind of raise my temperature up and kind of fight back at her, I just asked a series of questions to try to understand why she was where she was, to try to really dive in. Where was she getting the information? I actually specifically asked her, where did you get this information from? That would be really helpful to have access to that source so I could evaluate it. And I pushed back on her on several occasions and said, that's very different than how I've seen things. And I don't usually bring my personal opinion to things because I've got these women with this wide range of opinions. So rather than say that's how I feel, I said a lot of my women have felt this and this. And so it was a really interesting conversation where I didn't feel like I backed down or I gave in, but I also didn't attack. And I got an email from her on the way over here when she says, thank you so much for that conversation. It was really good. And I don't know that there was necessarily persuasion there, but there was the beginning of a relationship built. And I now think that she will be able to interact with us in the future as an organization, and I understand her better, and I understand her boss better, and I hope that we can continue to work together. And so leaning into peacemaking when things get even more adversarial is, to me, the most important thing that we can be doing at this time.
Thank you. I love that you emphasize the peace building because that's such an important piece of this work that we all do. So, Aaliyah, what role does storytelling play in your organizing work, and could you give an example?
You just saw it. That was an incredible story, Emma. Actually, I think my answer picks up just about where Emma's left off. Earlier today, Dr. Marie got one of the Citizen Leadership Awards, and you heard in her comments how, as a health professional, the types of things she was seeing day in and day out just point to the brokenness, a deeper underlying set of things that need to get fixed. And so health professionals have this unique story to share that they experience every time they interact with a patient. So many times they interact with a patient, they're seeing something where the actual solution is a policy solution, not something they can actually prescribe. So the example of how that plays out in Baudiar's work, we partner with Health and Human Services on ensuring that the health ecosystem, that health systems can help expand and strengthen our democracy. Well, democracy groups and voting groups have often knocked on the doors of Health and Human Services, this proposal, that proposal, et cetera. But what those groups may not be able to bring as easily as we can is, hey, I'm actually a health professional who can see the direct impact of how expanding access to the vote will support my patients and support their health directly through the things that you're going to help us accomplish. And what that allows us to do is Ohio pediatrician who is already known by leadership at Health and Human Services as being a collaborator, someone who's worked with them on policy, then comes to a meeting and shares why not only is health policy an important way for HHS to collaborate, but also democracy policy is an important way to empower her patients and their voice. You've got folks like the American Medical Association, where their CEO recently wrote in a letter to Health and Human Services saying, the thing we want you to move on is your democracy work and make sure that we're giving voice to our patients. So that's the unique power of bringing those stories and perspectives into a space like that.
Thank you for that perspective. So, Layla, In what ways does your organization's work contribute to building stronger connections between constituents and their representatives? And how does that relate to our work at American Promise?
Yeah. So I sort of alluded to this in my first answer, which was we exist because we think political polarization is the single biggest threat to our generation. We believe the longer that you are unable to have a system that can make decisions, that can solve big problems, that can do big things, the more and more big problems, the can gets kicked down the road and our generation gets left holding the bag. And when I think of some of the sources of polarization, the word that I keep coming back to is trust. And our work is fundamentally about trust building. It's about creating spaces where lawmakers can build trust with one another, but it's also about showing people something to be trustworthy in. You know, we can't ask people to trust their democracy when we're not really showing them, you know, to your point about what are the stories that we're telling. We're not engaging people in a system that feels like they can trust what the outcomes are. You know, we did a series of events in Wisconsin. I don't know if there's anyone from Wisconsin in the room. Okay, so you'll appreciate this because we hosted all of them at breweries because that's how you get people to come to your event. And we had a bipartisan pair of our state lawmakers lead a conversation with a few you know, experts on a variety of different topics. And at the end of one of those conversations, a woman came up and she was a Democrat in the district of the Republican lawmaker who had been on the panel at the front of the room, just sort of modeling what it looks like to have bipartisan conversations and inviting the constituents to share their ideas. It wasn't a town hall, it was a discussion. And at the end of that, the Democrat in the Republicans district came up and we were shooting like testimonials. So she said this on camera, like in public with her face. And she said, I hated that guy. I voted against him every single election, and I didn't realize I actually agree with him on a lot of things. And just creating those opportunities for people to understand that they can disagree with parts of, you know, different perspectives that a person might have, but still not fully just disengage from the political process. I think that is the work that we are trying to do and trying to create, you know, a democracy where people feel like they belong. And when I look at American Promise, I see you doing the work of building trust in each other, in our systems, and in the outcomes that those systems lead to. And I think those are integrally connected.
Yes, thank you. Those conversations are so integral to what you're doing and what we're all doing. So, as you know, the theme of this conference is hope in an age of polarization. Could you each provide a recent anecdote or story from your work that is giving you hope right now? And we can start with you, Aaliyah.
Yeah, hope. I think that what gives me hope is just how much every single one of our health professionals, all 50,000 of them, deeply get what y'all are doing in this room. Every time that a physician has to explain why a person is spending 9 times on insulin what somebody in another country would spend, every time a coroner is looking at a family explaining that their family member died of an overdose, every time that, you know, even my nurse talked to me about how some of my medications were delayed by prior authorization, those are really hard moments, but what they do is they create a very clear reason why the work that you do in this room is so important. And now the work is about turning that from examples into the action that they can take to advance the For Our Freedom Amendment. So yeah, I think it's the plethora of stories within our work that help generate the power of this movement.
So I'm going to give you the words directly from some of our MWAG members because they're what gives me hope. The stories, I have access to an endless number of stories of women who are engaging in the political process for the first time, finding their voice and learning how to be effective. So I'm just going to read you two. This is from Rebecca in Idaho. She said, my MWAG first is that after joining, I no longer feel like I have to win every argument. I just have to provide space to ask questions that give people a different perspective. Previously, I would argue a point to the death or until I virtually beat people into submission. It did not win me friends. Another MWAG first for her is that she met in person with legislators about a specific policy she wanted to have passed. she'd written to them before but had never done it on her own. And then Rachel from Nebraska, where I live, started off by just writing her legislators about something she cared about. It was a pro-democracy issue, and then it led to something else. And then with those tools, it gave her the confidence and assistance to write her own thoughts and opinions well enough to send them on her own. So those first assists got her there, and then she could do it on her own about issues she cared about. And then that actually turned into writing letters to the editor and op-eds, and our op-ed lab helped her do that, and then we helped her publish them. And now she's just kind of a fount of op-eds all the time, going from never having written or spoken with a legislator. She's been in multiple meetings, and she works on a lot of the issues that we work on and that you work on, that we work on together. And then whenever she has an issue that she cares about, she now has the tools and the confidence to go out and do it herself. So imagine thousands of those women, and I dare you not to feel hope.
It's amazing. And then we'll see her in the legislature soon, right? She's next stop.
I think you're right.
So I have a story from another state that we work in, Oklahoma, and it starts with two young members who got to know one another actually in COVID. They launched the Oklahoma Future Caucus chapter, built a real friendship, and Senator Hicks had an idea to advance a harm reduction bill, and it was a needle exchange bill, which is quite controversial. And as a Democrat in very red Oklahoma, she obviously needs to get some bipartisanship on that in order to advance it. And so she turns to her friend Rep. Pei and says, "I've got this idea. I know you care about public health. Like, would you want to work on this with me?" And she knew that she could go to him because she had the permission structure through Future Caucus to actually build a real relationship, not judge him by the letter behind his name. And they sat together, and Rep. Pei went and sort of did his own conversations. They held tons of stakeholder interviews, and in the process of doing that, he discovered that 1 in 3 police officers in the course of his or her service would experience a needle stick injury. And so he was able to get the endorsement of the police union on this bill and sold it as a back the blue piece of legislation. And together they successfully passed that bill, and it has already saved thousands of lives. And I think about Senator Hicks, who had tried to advance time and time again public health legislation and failed, and it seemed so impossible. It seemed like a fool's errand for her to keep trying and to keep coming back. And all of a sudden, the impossible is possible because of just persistence and a new way of thinking about ourselves and our own power and what we can achieve when we come together. And so when I look at the young members of Future Caucus, and I think about also all of the people in this ecosystem who are trying to do seemingly impossible things, I just imagine what could be possible if we stopped thinking that there were limits to what we could do and actually started thinking about what do we bring to this conversation that's not here yet.
That's very, very true. I would like to say thank you to all 3 of you for the tremendous work that you're doing. It's incredibly inspiring, and it's been a real pleasure to have you on the stage here with me today. So can we get one more round of applause?